I'm Jim Check. You're watching Kelowna Now. I'm calling in from Las Vegas. I'm down here for the Consumer Electronics Show, the CES. I'll be here all week. Uh, Forgive us if it's a little fuzzy and blurry because of the connections. And I have with me on the phone Ian Burns. Big, busy day in Canadian politics today.
Yeah, huge. And I can't resist the temptation to give myself a pat on the back for accurately predicting that this is what was going to happen, that he was going to resign. Even though it seemed, even then, like, even though everything was aligned against him, so all of my instinct said he's finished, I still thought somehow he's going to hold on because he's done it for so long. But
Well,
obviously, it's no longer possible even for him.
he has held on in a way, in a fashion, because this is the weakest resignation. He's actually resigning as the leader of the Liberal Party, but he's going to stay on as PM until they find a new leader. So that's kind of like, I'll resign when they find a new leader.
Yeah, and I
And he
think.
prorogued Parliament.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. In many ways, that's kind of the biggest deal because he was toast, I think, and it's been obvious for quite a while now. But the argument really revolves around when is an election going to be called, and also the very sort of sensitive subject of proroguing Parliament. And then, after about 2 or 3 minutes of his little speech this morning, he said, "Oh yeah, by the way, Parliament's prorogued till March 24th." That's kind of, he presented it as a fait accompli. There was no discussion about it. There was no like national debate. It's just happened. And it seems realistically that that means that there isn't going to be an election until, I guess, the end of April or sometime in May at the earliest now.
Well, they'll likely be working it hard to see if they can do a deal with Jagmeet to hang on till October. That wouldn't surprise me either. This is, to me, this is one of the most selfish moves that this Liberal Party has done so far, in all the selfish moves that they've done in their 9 years.
That's certainly the opinion of Danielle Smith. She really kind of laid into the Liberals and sort of by extension Trudeau, saying that, we desperately need a leader. We need somebody strong right now because we're, in many, it's not an exaggeration. It's that Canada's kind of fighting for its life in a way with Trump. Because if Trump, well, that's forget about him joking or maybe not joking about actually annexing Canada, but his threats of a tariff, that let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's hope that it's just bravado, but that would be like apocalyptic for Canada, wouldn't it? So this is the last thing, the very last thing that we need is the Liberals kind of arguing with each other on Twitter and TV debates. We don't really need that right now.
Well, he plays right into Trump's hands because Canadians are frustrated. They want a new government. They want new leadership. They want a new mandate. And he plays into the frustrations where people give up and say, "Well, we might as well join the United States." He's actually playing right into that hand.
Yeah, but then I suppose what if you put yourself in his shoes, what was the alternative? Because if he'd said, I'm going to dissolve Parliament right now, there's going to be an election, and we're going to clear this up once and for all, I'm going to be the guy that goes into the election. Because then the Liberal Party would then despise him because they'd say, you didn't give us a chance. You just burned everything down. So it seems like he's doing it for his team, isn't he? He's doing it for the
Yeah.
Liberals.
So you just said it right there. He didn't do it for Canadians. He didn't do it for Canada. He did it for the Liberal Party and himself.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And also, yeah, I mean, for himself, because now he doesn't have to be the guy in the history books that, got absolutely obliterated in the 2025 election, which is what the polls suggest is going to happen.
And he still gets to, you know, act like the PM for another few months and spend all our money and like his vision of Canada is completely different than most Canadians, and that the polls show that. Like in his resignation speech there, talking about how that we have to prioritize the things that he's prioritizing is not what Canadians are prioritizing.
Yeah, well, possibly the most controversial. It's hard to say which really is the most controversial of his policies, but possibly the most is the carbon tax. And I was quite interested to see on CBC because they've been they've had like a live show going since he announced. that he was going to resign, and they've had lots of old liberal advisors and whatnot come on, and they basically all said that they think that's gone, that's dead now, the carbon tax, and that just proves really that it's his baby, and that's kind of what he was fighting for, these things
The
that
two
nobody
things he
really
fought for
liked.
in his speech, the carbon tax, and of course he put out a softball there for the CBC and say, well, like we're the ones that are defending you, just like make sure you defend us. Basically, is what that said.
Yeah, and he also repeated something. He said a lot about, he talked a lot about polarization, and he actually showed a little bit of self-awareness, I think, because he said the Canadian political scene is very polarized and the temperature is very high right now, and my presence makes it worse, so I've got to go. He actually said that, to his credit. But I mean, he did also later on, when Polyev was brought up, he did refer to him as hard right, and in the past he said the term far right, which is, if you're a student of history or a student of politics, that is absolutely insane. That is, you've completely lost your mind if you think Pierre Polyev is far right. But
Yeah. Well,
that
he needs
is
to
the
he
very
needs to excite his
polarization that he's
base.
speaking about.
Yeah, he needs to excite his base with that rhetoric, though, and that's what he's doing, right?
Well, I guess so. And if you were to be cynical, you would say trying to scare people, trying to make them afraid. But
Yeah.
obviously, far right refers to authoritarianism, really, and
Mhm.
maybe things based on like ethnicity and that kind of thing. Does that apply to Pierre Polyev? When he said he wanted to be the prime minister, when he said that he wanted to lead the Conservative Party, when he announced his campaign, he did that with a video saying, "I want Canada to be the freest country in the world." That's the opposite of authoritarianism.
So
I mean,
let me let
it
me
just it insults people, I think, to hear that kind of language used.
let me put it to you this way: politics is a circle, and the left is so far left that it is far right.
Well, yeah, it's called horseshoe theory, isn't it? And it's
Hmm.
certainly accurate that with, I mean, the main comparison in history is Stalin and Hitler, who they were on different ends of the spectrum, but kind of ended up being the same in many regards, just with different enemies and different sort of motives, but their behavior ended up being quite similar. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. There's also just, it's about when you're in power, power corrupts, as they say. And I think that kind of, it doesn't matter what your politics are. Once you're in power, power itself becomes your kind of ideology. And I'm not saying that necessarily about Trudeau or the Liberals here, but that's an argument from history.
You did a story, lots of reaction out there, lots and lots of reaction. You want to go through some of that reaction?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, we should start with Polyev. He came out and said that nothing's changed now, and he also stuck the knife in because he's aware now. In many ways, he's lost his best asset, which was Trudeau, because he's kind of hedged his entire campaign around Justin Trudeau and how he's ruined everything, and whatever else he says about him. So he kind of he changed direction a bit, and he said all these MPs, all these Liberals have been
Yeah, I
keeping
mean,
him in power.
I would say though that Trudeau is, he doesn't bear the responsibility of all the failed policies. He's the lightning rod because he's the leader, but the policies belong to the Liberal Party and this
Yeah, and
and the NDP that supported it.
that's what that's what Polyev is now trying to. He's trying to, like, shift the guns a little bit, so to fire them in a different direction, because the main target has gone now. But he is kind of still there, and obviously he's very fresh in people's memories. So I feel like the Tories are still going to use Trudeau, I think, as a weapon
And I
in
think
in the
him
election.
him staying is selfish, but it actually is more damaging to the Liberals because that's all people are going to see because it hasn't changed, right? Because switching somebody out at the last minute is really not going to do much.
Yeah, I mean, if he was completely committed to it, maybe he would have brought in a caretaker of some kind, like LeBlanc or Mark Miller or somebody like that, and said, "Look, I'm off now. I'm going to leave tonight. I won't be the prime minister tomorrow," kind of thing. That probably would have put the Liberals in a better position. But then,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
he didn't
somebody
want to
put
do
on
that, did he?
LinkedIn.
He wanted to oversee it.
Somebody posted on LinkedIn that these are the policies that need to happen to save the the Liberal Party, and then he listed all these these policies, and I'm just like, you mean you want to vote for the Conservatives because they're basically that platform? I was just like, okay.
Well, there's, and if we continue with the reactions like Trump, Elon Musk, and so on, there is a worldwide, or at least across the West, a reaction against the liberalism that we became familiar with after the end of the Cold War, like 90s and noughties liberalism. It seems to me that it's dying. I mean, I would actually argue that it's been dead for some time now. And just look at the kind of responses from Trump. Elon Musk coming in, and he's referring to like Argentina, he's referring to the Prime Minister in the UK, Trump's victory. It's all kind of aligning now against the Liberals. So I actually think what you say there about they might as well just adopt the Conservative manifesto or whatever, their plan. I feel like the next election, if the Liberal Party still exists, their their plan for the country will actually be quite similar to the Conservatives, because that's the direction that the world seems to be going in.
Jagmeet listed out some of the failures, and the sad thing is Jagmeet supported him. He let you down on the cost of housing and groceries. Okay, you share that. He let you down on fixing healthcare. That's on you. It doesn't matter who leads the Liberals. But I mean, everything that he says, it's on him. He's every
Totally.
time he had an opportunity to vote no confidence, he supported it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things he says there is they don't deserve another chance. The response might very well be to that. So why did you give him so many? Why did you give him chance after chance after chance? Why did you allow him to govern for the last 4 years or whatever it's been?
And he still hasn't shown that he will vote no confidence. It's still something that's supposedly going to happen here on March 24th when they get back to Parliament, unless they figure out another way to prorogue it again. And this is the guy from Justin Trudeau who spoke so passionately against Stephen Harper when he prorogued government. And a reporter did ask him that question. Of course, this time it's different. It's always different, right?
Yeah,
Always
and he
different.
also started to praise democracy because he said there'll be a confidence motion probably in March. It's like, okay. I don't think many people are satisfied by that.
Now, Elon Musk was out there. Elon Musk is busy for sure out there, and he takes great risk in what he does.
Yeah, well, he's on simultaneous fronts, isn't he? He's on several fronts at once. He's Germany, the UK, Canada, obviously, and then there's America. When that's his main concern, I suppose. But on this today, I don't know, within about an hour or 2 hours of each other or something, he approved of Trump's I don't know if you call it a threat or idea of annexing Canada into the US. And then he also suggested that Britain should join the US. So it's kind of, yeah, he's really he's got a lot of energy, and he's
Hmm.
being very forceful in his opinions of late.
Danielle Smith, one of the harshest critics today, kind of echoes what I said, or I echoed what she said, that this is a very selfish move by the Liberal government and or the Liberal Party.
Yeah, she's just completely taken no prisoners. And in her statement there, I mean, she doesn't even, in the main bit at least, the bit that's on X, she doesn't even refer to Justin
To
Trudeau. Doesn't even mention his name, which is
Christy,
unusual. I mean, it's almost like she didn't even want to like do him that basic, you know, um, act of politeness or whatever you want to call it, like act of amity. And instead it's just like he's gone, forget him, and it's now the Liberal Party. Like, and she's all business. She seems very, very determined.
Here's one, Christy Clark. Wow, that was quite the post on X from Christy Clark. As a
Yeah.
lifelong Liberal, I look forward to joining tens of thousands of Canadians to choose our next leader. This is their biggest opportunity in over a decade to grow our party. That's optimistic, overly optimistic, I think. And obviously, she's I think made that clear that she wants to be that person.
Yeah, that is odd, but I suppose there's a market for optimism in politics, isn't there? And maybe she thinks that that can be what she brings. She brings like an optimism that is really not present anywhere else in the Liberal Party. But I mean,
And
I
then
also find that very interesting the way she referred to a lifetime of public service from Justin Trudeau, because I seem to recall that he joined politics quite late in his life, really. Well, I suppose by the standards of today, he was in his late 30s, wasn't he?
yeah, and then of
So that's
course
not a lifetime.
Mark Carney, the other contender there that seems to be making phone calls and making sure that his name is in the ring there.
Yeah, and a very bland statement, I think, from Mr. Carney there, which isn't going to do his reputation for being bland any favors, I don't think. But
And then
I
yeah,
don't
so
know.
all the big banks in the United States ditching him. So I guess maybe he's looking for a new job because a lot of the big banks have ditched his net zero alliance that he was the chair of. Carbon tax,
Yeah,
carbon tax, as Pierre calls him, carbon tax Carney seems to be losing the fight for carbon tax for sure, especially on the
that's
world
another.
stage.
It's another element of this reaction, isn't it? Where that is just being completely rejected. The net zero. I think, there is a reason that there's so much focus on Britain, I think, and Canada actually, from the United States perspective, because they're seen as kind of they're like lessons to learn from, aren't they? So they look to Canada and they say, this is what happens if you go down the kind of diversity, equity, inclusion sort of line and the net zero. That's where it gets you. And then they say the same thing about Britain, which, Britain's energy situation is almost like it's a catastrophe. It's almost a humanitarian crisis, what's happening in Britain because of its stupid energy policy. So I think the Americans use these as like examples, and it's very important to their discourse. But Carney, obviously, yeah, I think he was riding that post Cold War liberal wave, liberal with a small L, and that's just another example of how that's going the way of the dodo.
Yeah, I imagine we'll get reaction throughout the week here. I think most Canadians are looking for an election, uh, and we still don't know when that will be. I guess we know at the outside it will be October.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the very last possible time, but yeah, I would guess probably May.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
that's not going to satisfy a lot of people. I mean, I was saying earlier that there's a possibility, we'll have to wait and see, that it'll become clear in the next couple of weeks. But I think there's a possibility that there might be another kind of protest movement that will evolve and come into Ottawa again. Because I feel like people are so fed up and they're going to look at this as like another ruse, as another trick, maybe, and try and demand that Parliament be reopened.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like they play right into Trump's hand, that frustration level where there people are thinking that this Canadian government is stymied and now blocking what would be attempt to have voice again with an election, blocking it again. So like the frustration level for Canadian households that can't afford to pay their mortgage, can't afford to meet their monthly obligations. This is just another delay.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not exactly like the Americans needed any more advantages in the battle. They're already like dominant and so powerful, and they can intimidate and threaten and bully Canada in so many ways. But then on top of that, you have Canada now, with its arms tied behind its back
Yeah. I think
during
I
this
think when the
critical
report
period.
where reporters are asking these questions, the most important question to be asking is like, who does this proroguing parliament serve, and who does this um, kind of resignation serve? Because it sure isn't. If you look at the polls, it sure isn't serving Canadians.
No, and I mean, if we're just gonna call a spade, it benefits the Liberal Party, doesn't it? That's the only possible beneficiary in this situation. I mean, in a very abstract way, you could maybe push it and say, that it kind of is better for democracy because there'll be a better candidate from the Liberals and it'll be a more fairly contested election or something like that. But that's a stretch, I think, really. The
Yeah, I
fact that the
think
country is put on hold so that the Liberal Party can make a decision among themselves
at
is
a time
crazy,
of
isn't it?
very at a time of very high risk, let's not forget that. Like that's the most important thing. If this had just been, like easy as it goes, but these tariffs are looming over top of us, and now we have the president of the most powerful country in the world taunting us and reaching out, basically doing like a psyop on Canadians by saying, come to us, it'll be better. Because it sure ain't better
Yeah,
now, right? Come to us, it'll
it's
be better. Frustrated? Come to us.
yeah. No, I mean, look, the Governor General, ultimately they kind of just have to do what they're told, don't they? That's the deal. That's the
Yeah,
constitutional arrangement. So it would be quite hard to blame her specifically.
yeah,
But I mean, it falls on Trudeau's shoulders, really, doesn't it? He's made this happen. It's not the Governor General that's prorogued Parliament, really. It's him. He's done it. And it's yet another thing. I was just reading there, Pascal Santonge, her praise for Trudeau. She's saying like, you're going to go down in the history books for your many accomplishments and so on and so on. I'm not so sure, and I feel like maybe this act here, right at the end, might be considered one of his bigger black marks
yeah.
against his name.
Most
Because
most
I think you're
selfish
right. I mean, I
act,
think
I
it
would
really is
say.
hobbling Canada at this critical time.
Most selfish act ever. And then Pascal on St. Ange there, she's responsible for what's happened to media in Canada.
Yeah, well, and she's she doesn't mention that in this little statement that she's released, but yeah, she just talks about you
Yeah.
know, expanded our economy. Our economy is no, sorry, our economy has continued to lead our peers.
What?
Not sure that that's true, but
I don't know what part of that
that.
would be true. Um, we don't want to rant all day on this. So we're going to have lots of time this week to rant on it. In the market, though, like some people were saying, the Canadian dollar looked like it was going to pop. Canadian dollar, and I put a question mark out there saying, like, I doubt it until things happen, right? I mean, traders don't make trades like that. Um, Dollar still flat, or I mean, down, still trending. Um, Gold uh, had popped a little bit this morning, and then it's kind of like settled back. Um, it's just kind of hovering where it is. And then Bitcoin, again, we're just going to cover this off. Like it's over the $100,000 mark. And we talked about that last week, that it looked like it was going to take another run. And sure enough, at 102,157 Canadian as we speak, Bitcoin, again, with the wind in its sails, looks very, very strong going into how many days before January 20th? Not too far now, right? 14 days.
14.
14 days. And
Yeah.
I'm here in Vegas, and I did drive by the Trump Tower. Maybe I think they got it all cleared up. I think people are back in that hotel there, so I can see it from here. Um, and I'm here at the CES, so we'll be here all week, and we'll be live streaming some stuff there. We'll see lots of AI stuff, a lot of robotics, a lot of other really cool stuff going on. So no AI segment today because we're going to inundate you with that stuff here in the next couple of days. Um, and we'll leave you with a meme for today. How's that? You got a meme there you wanted to show people.
Yeah, well, kind of a meme, I guess. It's more of a more of a jibe from I don't know if you watched that fight when Trudeau had the boxing fight, like the charity match
Yeah, yeah.
in 2012. And this is the guy that he beat, and he's now taking this opportunity to come and stick the boot in. And I just thought that that was quite amusing.
I'm sure there's a lot of those out there. Um,
Yeah, a lot. And Jody Wilson-Raybould is another one. A lot of enemies that he made over the years. But I just thought that this was particularly funny that this guy's he sat on his defeat to Trudeau in a boxing match for like 13 years or something. He's come
what I,
out.
what I say to people right now is this: watch the actions of people and the media and the politicians, and watch that, not the talk they talk, but watch the actions, because that's where you're going to tell what's going on. Watch the actions.
Absolutely. Always good advice, I think. Not just politics, but every sort of realm of life.
I mean, if you think about it too, like, you know, all the discontent that Justin Trudeau is feeling, and he played again played the victim today of, you know, like how he's misguided it at best and suffering from delusions at worst.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll say again that there was a certain amount of self-awareness, I think, when he said that, like, him being around is not good for political discourse, and it's kind of like it's too crazy. But then he did sort of imply, and he has in the past implied, that that's all confected anyway, really, by the likes of Pierre Poilievre, that that there's just this misrepresentation of Trudeau that predominates, and it's almost like, so I'm going to take one on the chin for for democracy, and I'm going to step down. It did almost sound a bit like that, yeah.
Again, watch the actions, watch the stock market in Canada too. Like just like we watched it in the United States, the reaction in the United States for Donald Trump's election was very, very positive. And the resignation today, CTV just put out a headline: Canadian oil stocks climb as industry absorbs news of Trudeau resignation. The resource sector is probably going to sigh a breath of relief. And maybe Canadians can sigh that breath of relief, and there may be some positive reaction if the markets are always front running. They always look to the future because that's how markets work. So watch the markets, watch what you see in the resource sector, and that'll tell you where this is likely going.
Yeah, and also I would say keep an eye on what comes out of the US as well, because because of their power and influence over Canada, it matters a great deal how they react. And we've already seen positive reaction from at least Elon Musk and a few other sort of prominent Trump people to Pierre Poilievre in his interview with, well, if you can
Right.
call it an interview, conversation with Jordan Peterson the other day. So I think that's important to see, because if they're willing to be more favorable to somebody else in Canada, then that could have huge consequences for the economy and for everything else in Canada.
Yeah, Canada needs a strong leader. Canada needs a leader that loves Canada, and it needs a strong mandate from the people of Canada.
Yeah,
And with that, we'll leave it here for today. And then tomorrow we'll have lots of stuff going on with the CES. And also we have Renee Merrifield in and Beyond the Ballot. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do that with her or you're going to do it. We'll figure that out here in the next little while. But I'm sure we'll have lots and lots to say.
yeah, as usual, very interesting takes on politics, and a lot of connections as well. So I'm sure she'll have heard things that aren't out there in the media or anything like that.
With that said, we thank you for watching Kelowna Now.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent.